I want to spend some time talking to you about estate planning and probate. There are a lot of myths that swirl out there, and I have come across a number of them in my practice over the years, and I want to share those myths with you and offer you some explanation for them. One of the top myths that I hear is that estate planning, as you'll hear what that term means in a minute, is only for the rich. That is really actually dangerously false. And here's why. Yes, it's true that there are some estate planning techniques that really only apply to large, very, very wealthy estates. But for most of us, we don't need those tools, but we do need some tools. The tools that are what I would call basic tools that everybody should have are a will, a power of attorney, and then at least consider a living will. I want to talk about those with you for just a minute. A power of attorney is a document that starts with your incapacitation and ends either when you're no longer incapacitated or when you pass away. Now, incapacitation today comes in a variety of forms. You can be suffering with Alzheimer's and therefore be incapacitated. You can simply be elderly and not able to attend to your affairs. And here's the real kicker. You can be young and be in a car accident, be in a medically induced coma. You are technically incapacitated. Now, the problems that come from that, without having a power of attorney, are that there's nobody to tend to your affairs for you. There is no one that you have authorized to pay the mortgage. There's no one that you have authorized to make medical decisions. There's no one that you've authorized to be able to speak to doctors. And in today's world, with all of the HIPAA requirements, physicians and medical personnel are very, very unlikely to speak to anyone who is not authorized. So it's really important that you have those pieces in place. The living will address issues that surround things like being kept alive on a feeding tube, being kept alive only on machines. And if you feel strongly about that, one way or another, that is something that you should include in your power of attorney. Now, the power of attorney, as I said, will take place upon your incapacitation. It will end when you are no longer incapacitated or when you pass away. And in the power of attorney document, you are going to appoint someone that is called an agent. That's a person whom you trust to make those decisions, make payments, talk to your physicians on your behalf when you are not able to. At the moment of your death, the power of attorney ends and your will would take place. A will is a document in Pennsylvania by which you can make your wishes known and by which you can appoint someone to wrap up your affairs. That person is called the executor or the executrix, and they will make sure that your will is done. Your beneficiaries are designated in your will by you, and the administrator or the personal representative will make sure that they are given the net of estate as you've dictated it. They will also make sure your final bills are paid, and they'll make sure that all of your affairs are wound up. That is the job of the executor. Now, without having a will in place, there's another common myth, which is if I don't have a will, everything goes to the state. That's not exactly true. We call that an intestacy, meaning that it's somebody who's died without a will. And if you don't name your beneficiaries, Pennsylvania kind of has a default in that there's already a scheme in place that will say what percentage of your estate goes to certain people. Now, I caution you, those people that Pennsylvania say should get your estate might not be the people who you want to have your estate. And even if it is, it might not be in the same shares that you would make your desires known. So for that reason, I always encourage people to consider and make a will. One thing and another myth that I find increasingly in my practice is that folks are allured by actually salesmen who want to present them with a nice binder and create for them a living trust or a revocable trust. People are led to believe for one reason or another that those are vehicles that will avoid probate and that those vehicles will also do away with any inheritance or death taxes. And that is not true. While there are certain vehicles that can do that, they're a little bit more complicated and might not be necessary for your particular type of estate. But what you do want to watch out for is the mistaken belief that there is a trust in place that will do away with the need for taxes, when in fact that's not the case. So be very leery of that. Another myth that I want to talk about today is that if you do not have a will, or if you do have a will even, and need to go to probate, that probate is something you want to avoid at all costs. And that really is not true either. Probate is simply the process by which your will is filed, your personal representative or administrator is appointed, and your desires carried out. There are some fees that are associated with that, things like getting the letters of administration or letters that your executrix will need to present to banks and things in closing accounts or managing your affairs and winding them up. But those costs are not exorbitant, and it's certainly nothing to be afraid of. Again, as there are exceptions to every rule, probate is not a lengthy process. You're not looking at decades-long legal struggles or legal battles. Most estates will wrap up anywhere between 18 months and 2 years. Again, there's exceptions to every rule, but it is not a long process, and it is not a complicated process. Again, by virtue of a will, you're going to be directing the person and naming the person who you want to wrap up those affairs for you. Let me leave you with this thought. Everyone, regardless of your age, regardless of your health, needs to have some basic estate planning documents in place. Everyone needs a power of attorney. Everybody needs a will. If I can be of help, please give me a call.